Hey everyone, my name is Mike Gorman. You may know me better as Gormy or Gormy Goes Keto. And I'm excited to have a chance to talk to you today. When the team at KetoCon reached out to me to be a part of the experience, I was really moved because for me, our stories are really one of the powerful things that come out of this whole experience we're in together. You know, they say that KetoCon is the science and stories of keto. And I know a lot of you are coming from that perspective of looking for the scientific data and those great details. And I also know a lot of you are like me, and you looked to keto because you were struggling with a goal that you had for yourself. You know, for a lot of us, it's weight loss. So today I'm going to take you through my journey, you know, my entire life journey, because I think it leads up to how I ended up finding the ketogenic lifestyle and the impact that it truly had on me and the challenges that I faced. I think my story is one of someone who was lost and then became found. And you can see very much from that first image I'm putting up there, there has been a dramatic change in my life. And I credit it to the ketogenic journey that I have been on. So let's get talking and really kind of dig into where I've been, where I headed to, and where I'm going now. And I think there's some lessons along the way that I hope that you will be able to find useful for yourself. So we're going to start and we're going to go back to the beginning for me. And the beginning for me really began when I was a kid. I grew up as an overweight child and was put on a diet for the first time by my family when I was 10 years old. And that was when they sat me down at the kitchen table and said, "We're putting you on Weight Watchers and this is what's happening." And that started a roller coaster for me of ups and downs, and really began a long pattern of shame about my eating and just really insulating this growing food addiction and this obsession with food inside of me. You can see from some of these pictures that yes, you know, I eventually reached 540 pounds as an adult. I grew up, you know, like I said, an overweight child, an obese adolescent, and a super morbidly obese adult. And one of the things that really stands out for me in this, and I would like you to think about, is when you become this overweight, this large, it's not just about aesthetics and it's not just about a look. It's about how the bigger you get, the smaller your world becomes. You start to really enable those behaviors that are keeping you in that place. And I was well over 450 pounds, probably for close to 30 years, and over 500 pounds for probably over 10 years. And I was basically just, you know, living to eat and not really living a life. I had tried to build a career, and I ended up building a career that actually enabled my behaviors, and eventually got too large to continue that career, and found myself in a place where I didn't have options. I really didn't know what I was going to do. And I didn't want to lose weight because I was ready to get rid of those behaviors. You know, I wasn't ready to give up my addiction. I decided that I needed to start on a weight loss journey again because I wanted to work. I needed money, and I needed to find, you know, life again. So I went into, you know, what I consider to be the first big, really massive journey of my weight loss. And that was in the 2010, 2011 time. And over 2 years, using a paleo diet, I went from 540 pounds to 210 pounds. And the numbers are important here because I solely focused on the numbers. I was using a well-formulated diet, but I was obsessed with the scale. You know, I think that's something a lot of people can relate to. You know, we become so focused on numbers that we don't really think about what else is going on and what's driving our behaviors. And most of that time really was about white knuckling through and just pushing to see the scale change, pushing to see those numbers drop. I set a goal for myself of hitting 210 pounds by my 40th birthday. And I hit that goal. And that was late April, early May of 2013. And you can see from those pictures there, you know, I got to that point and I was feeling fantastic. You know, I could physically move, I could walk. I carried that table for 2 miles from a yard sale for my sister. And I thought I had done it. I thought I had found that prize that we all chased. But very quickly, I fell back into my old behaviors because there was a big missing piece to what was going on. I chased the scale, but I did no work on what was going on inside my head. I hadn't thought about mindset. I hadn't thought about how this was really going to change how I expressed who I was as a person and how I lived my life. And so I got scared. I honestly think I got scared. I think I ran back to what was comforting for me. And as you can tell, when you're as heavy as I was, you clearly are not just having a regular relationship with food. You have one that has a lot of twists and turns to it. And those voices, that food addiction inside of me started to rage again. And within 6 months, I had put on 270 pounds. I had gone from having parties to celebrate my successes to hiding myself again, to building that small world, and really just running from everything around me and running from people and burying myself, not just under food, not just under the weight I was gaining, but burying myself in that addiction. And it became pretty obvious, to a lot of people around me. I use the phrase embracing destiny, but destiny in quotes, because I actually started to believe that I was destined to be that big, that was who I was meant to be, because making change never stuck. I could lose weight, I could gain weight, but I could never find anything sustainable to carry me through. And so I embraced it. I literally did. Like if you know my Instagram account, Gorman Goes Keto, you can scroll back, 3 years, 3.5 years on that account and see these pictures and see these things. And I was probably the loudest proponent out there of saying, I'm fat and happy. This is my life. This is me. You better accept me, because I'm not changing for you and I'm not changing for anyone else. And this is really what drives my joy. And it was all really just a facade. It was me making that message so loud that I couldn't hear the concerns from people around me, or the concerns that I had for myself. My body was starting to fail. I was starting to see physical challenges and physical problems, like real health problems, start to come up that I was refusing to address because I didn't see a way out. I didn't see a reason, honestly. I think for me, the real low point was realizing that I was going to die. I knew that my weight and my eating was going to lead to my death. And I actually wrote a letter to my family that I kept by the side of my bed. And in this letter, I told them not to be upset if they found me, if I had not woken up. I wanted them to feel better about not having tried harder to make me change. And really, let's think about that. Like, that really is probably the biggest pile of crap I ever put together in my life. I wrote that letter to make myself feel better. I wrote that letter to assuage my fears and continue enabling the behavior that was destroying me. And I was going to stay on that path. Honestly, I don't know if it would have changed if not for a fateful discussion with my father. And it wasn't a discussion about weight. It wasn't a discussion about his concerns about my health or my life. I think at that point, my family had just realized there was nothing they could do. It was a discussion about some changes happening in our family. My father and my mother had taken custody of 2 small children, and through circumstances in their lives, we're going to have to raise those children. And my father, realizing this was happening, came to me to say, I know I'm not going to be around to see them graduate from college. I need to know that you'll be here to help if something happens, if I don't make it. And that struck me, not because he was putting responsibility on me, not because he was trying to hand something off, but because I realized for the first time that I had responsibility, that I had a reason to be here on this planet. I wanted to live. And that was a huge, almost breathtaking revelation for me. Like I said, I had resigned myself to the fact that I was going to die early, that I was going to die young, and I would just be another statistic. I would just be another oversized coffin in this world we live in now, where obesity rages, and that would just be the end of my story. And when you realize that you want to fight, but you don't know what to do, it's almost like it's even more powerless. It's like you're in this place of, you've tried before, you've done everything you thought that you could. So I started going back into the world that I had existed in before and doing research on how are people losing weight, and trying to hear the messages, see the stories of people that were going through these experiences, and hear ones that resonated with me. And I started to hear people talking about eating and finding freedom from food addiction and finding freedom from cravings. And I knew cravings intimately. I knew what it was like to go to bed hungry, even though I'd already eaten more that day than most people would in a week. And that was when I discovered the K word, keto. I discovered that the ketogenic diet was becoming more popular and more people were talking about it. And I discovered two books that a lot of you are probably familiar with, Jimmy Moore's Keto Clarity and Vinnie Tortorich's Fitness Confidential. And in those books, I listened to those two men talk about the fact that people were feeling relief. And I wanted that relief. I knew I needed it. I also knew, looking back at my past efforts, that I couldn't just chase the scale this time. I had to think about, where is your head in all of this? You know, Mike, where is your mindset? How are you feeling about what you're doing? How is food making you feel? And so I decided that I was going to go keto. I decided it was going to be the tool that I was going to use. You know, win or lose, this was my chance. This was my opportunity. And that was in February of 2017. I remember the day because I had read those books over a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, 2 books, 3 days, devoured them. And I'm an all or nothing person. You know, I go to extremes, as you can see from a lot of the pictures I've shared so far. And I decided it was time to do it. And if I didn't do it that day, it wasn't going to happen. So I went on a rampant cleaning spree and boxed up all the food that I knew I shouldn't be eating anymore. And there was a lot of it, several trips down to the dumpster that lasted until about midnight. And I woke up on a Monday morning, you know, cliche as it is, and I was ready to go. I was ready to start making things happen. And I did. You know, I fully embraced discovering what it meant to go keto. And what did keto look like for me when I started, I think, is a good question that I get asked a lot because it evolves over time. But when I started, I was just counting net carbs. I was eating fat and protein to satiation. From my paleo background, I had a great idea of kind of how to build a plate. And I really started to find out that when I reduced my carbohydrate intake, my cravings started to lessen. That intense desire to eat all of the time started to weaken, and I started to feel stronger. I started to realize that by taking control of what I was putting into my body, that I was empowering myself, and I was really working hard on what was going on in here, thinking about my emotions. And a big part of that was sharing my journey on Instagram, specifically sharing that journey with everyone out there, letting them know that there were great days and there were bad days. And yes, there were still days that I would cry myself to sleep at night because I wanted to eat. And there were days that I felt amazing. And there were days that I realized my energy was changing and evolving and growing. And, you know, let's take exercise as an example, you know, the physical changes that happen in our bodies. When I started my journey again, I could barely walk for 5 minutes. And that's what I started doing. I would just walk to a telephone pole in front of my house and walk back and sit. And that was my exercise. And as time progressed, I did a little bit more every day and a little bit more. And eventually I felt ready to walk into the gym again. And I started able to work out my body and started to realize that things were really changing. And some people, you know, you might be one of those people out there that you hear the stories of sometimes of especially very large men that go on a weight loss journey. We drop weight fast. You know, it's a blessing and a curse. You know, we see a lot of changes happen rapidly, just the way biology can work. And for me, that drove me to keep going because I was paying less attention to the number on the scale and more to how my clothes were fitting and how I was fitting into the world and the things I could do. I want you to think about what life is like when you're over 500 pounds. I want you to think about how you spend a lot of time in your head making sure you're going to fit into a space, and there's going to be a chair that you can sit in, and you're going to be able to get there from your car. And I soon started to realize that space in my head was getting freed up. I was starting to have more mental energy to focus on what was happening and what was going on in my life. And I could apply that to my work and to my relationship with people and interacting with friends and family. And I also discovered the amazing power of this keto community, this real caring keto community that we're all a part of. And I just was amazed. Like, amazing is my word that I use a lot. And I was amazed, not just to see what I was doing, but to start learning what everyone else is doing and start to be able to share our wins and our losses together. And I had some fantastic success. I had some setbacks during this time. I was actually diagnosed with pneumonia and was hospitalized for almost 20 days. I almost died. Luckily, I survived, but I also spent 2 months bedridden after that on oxygen, just trying to get my body back to a place that I could live a normal life again. And I bring this up not because anyone is going to go through that. That was a very individual circumstance, but I bring it up because it cemented for me that I was making the right choices. I realized when I walked into that hospital, I went to see a doctor for the first time in almost 30 years, that this was another stage in my fight of fighting for life. And that for me is, I think, the big kind of overarch of my ketogenic journey is I had to fight for my life. That was my why. I wanted to live. And things, can go great and things can stumble. And we all hit those points. We love talking about stalls. Weight stalls on a weight loss journey are a big thing. And one, I would want to say, like, a stall isn't just a week or two of your weight not moving. A stall is a longer period when you realize that you need to take a look at what you're actually doing. And I hit a point in 2018, later in 2018, where my weight had stalled for probably a month or two. And I was actually starting to put some weight back on. I was starting to see some of my old behaviors start to rear their head. I was overeating on keto foods. And yes, that's possible. Some of you might not think that it is, but it really is possible. And I realized that this was going to be a make it or break it point for me, that I was going to have to find another tool for my toolbox, find something else to help me. And as I mentioned, I had not really been tracking, to begin with. I hadn't really been doing anything along those lines. And for me, I realized the evolution of what I would need is to start looking at my macros specifically and start looking at caloric intake, because it can become important at different points for us to do that. And I realized, when I tried to do that myself, that I was going to need help. And like a lot of people, I've got a pretty big ego, and it's not easy to ask for help. It's not easy to reach out and say, I can't do this alone. I know that in the end, I have to carry myself across that finish line, but I'm going to need some help to get there. So I started looking for a coach, and I started reaching out to different resources. And I found a coach. I found a coach I had actually connected with earlier on Instagram, and he was becoming a part of the Deeper State Keto program. And he said, I'm looking to pick up clients, and I know you're talking about finding a coach. Are you interested in working together? And that was Jonathan Shane, the Keto Road. And he was willing to take a chance on me. I said to him during our very first discussion that I'm not coachable. This is going to be a fun experiment for both of us, because I don't think I'm a coachable person. But I took a deep breath, and I went to that place of realizing there's some things I can control and there's some things that I can't control. And I put some trust in working with another person. And we made some changes. Like I'm saying here, my keto journey evolved. I didn't just go from, point A to point B. We took a methodical approach to looking at my fat and protein ratios. And I started eating a higher fat ketogenic diet, a much higher fat ratio for the first time. We also went from counting net carbs to total carbs, which was a whole new world for me. And it might be something kind of crazy for you to hear, for me to even bring up this idea of counting total carbs instead of net. I know for me, I was one of those people that I was using the magical net carb equation to get in as many keto treats as I could and continue eating some of those foods that I had, trouble with, and I needed to work on my relationship with. So I also knew that this was going to be the way for me to continue working on that evolution of my mindset, being conscious of my journey and having someone to springboard those challenges off of and have someone to work through those problems with. And so when we began doing this together, I realized something for the first time. I was not just feeling momentary relief from the food addiction that had plagued me for my life. I was feeling pretty free most of the time. I was realizing that I could do this. I could really make lasting changes, and I could see a lot of my goals coming clearly into focus and see myself moving forward, see myself hitting some new levels that I didn't think would be possible in my life. And I wanted to share that. So I was very excited to go to KetoCon last year. I was very excited to take a lot of these online connections that I had made and make them real. And I know it's ironic that we're doing this virtually this year, but there's nothing like that first time you walk onto the exhibit floor at KetoCon and you realize that all of those people were there for the same reason. All of those people were there for health optimization. And some of them were there to work on their weight loss challenges. And some of them were there to build strength. And some of them were there to work on their hormonal profiles. But we all had this common language and this common goal. And it was beautiful. It was a place where I realized, I had found my family in a lot of ways. And I got to meet Jonathan for the first time in person, and that was amazing. And I got to meet a lot of people that I had just known, through DMs and through conversations online. And it gave me this real sense of wanting to step up my game when it comes to sharing, what I'm doing and my story, and helping other people through the lessons that I was learning and I had learned along the way. And yes, it also helped springboard me towards what eventually would be my weight loss goal. I know that's, something we don't like to talk about a lot, because we want to think about, our keto journeys as being a part of just continual lifelong health optimization, which I really think it is. But for many of us, we do have goals that involve, our weight, because it involves getting to a place where we can move or fit into a plane seat. You can see me there not having to use a plane extender. That was one of my first flights in years, decades almost, that I didn't have to ask for a plane seatbelt extender and buy 2 seats on a plane. And I was able to go to the gym daily and begin to work out more, and seeing myself be able to do things and live in a way that I went from just wanting to survive to wanting to thrive. That's a big thing for me, going from surviving to thriving. My why stays the same. I want to live, but how I approach that life is really what I'm able to work on now. And that brings us really to today, where I am. I'm working on now what I call my maintenance life. I'm working on being less entranced with the scale and working more on making sure that I feel every day that I'm doing things for my body and for my health that are positive, and doing that through a continued ketogenic lifestyle, and continuing to share my story with people and talk to new people every day who are just discovering keto, and seeing that there's possibility there for them, and seeing that they might too find freedom from all of these things that have literally weighed them down their entire lives. And I called this presentation Moving a Mountain because, yes, I have lost 265 pounds through using the ketogenic diet. And that's a literal mountain. That's more weight than some people get to in their lives. But it's also about realizing that life is about seeing that we all have these challenges and we all have these mountains that we need to move to get to our goals, and that we have to find ways to do it that allow us to do it sustainably and in a way that feels like there's real hope and possibility. And that is one of the lessons I would really love, for you to get from my story, to realize that I've now lost over 300 pounds twice in my life, not just once, but twice. And the idea of doing that twice, scared me, but I ended up realizing that it was possible. And I think that it was a combination of finding the ketogenic diet, the ketogenic life, and also being conscious and mindful and working on how I was approaching who I wanted to become as I evolved. So there's some lessons for us to talk about if this is something that you need to do for yourself. And I want to really kind of dive into this a little bit, just to kind of give you a summary of what I think are the big pieces that come out of what I have learned over these past 3 years. So first, I say find your path. And there's 2 parts to this, really. And none of this is going to be so amazingly scientific that you're going to need to take notes right now. But I just hope that you'll listen and feel some resonance in terms of you being able to tackle the mountain that you need to move. So what does find your path mean? There's 2 parts. And the first one is working on your why. And when I say work on your why, I'm not just being cliche. I'm not saying, it's because I want to lose weight, or it's because I want to buy clothes at a normal store, or I want to be able to fit better in my car. Those are all great reasons for wanting to optimize your health and make your life, change. But there's more behind that. So keep asking yourself why. When you feel like you're giving a superficial answer to that question, keep asking, keep working at it, and keep digging so that you really understand what it means. Like at first for me, it was, I want to help my family. I want to be there for them. But if I want to be there for them, what did I need to do? I needed to live. At the core, I needed to live. If I want to move better, what do I need to do? I need to be alive to do it. So that was really important. So ask yourself that question. The other piece of finding your path, and I think this is something that some of you probably watching have been thinking about a lot, especially if you're new to Googling keto or finding the ketogenic diet. There's a lot of answers out there about how to go keto. There's thousands of them, and there are hundreds of people that have put together plans and programs, and they all come back, to the basic tenet of reducing your carbohydrate intake, getting a moderate amount of protein and a moderate amount of fat. And that's great. Don't get overwhelmed by that. Don't get overwhelmed and feel like you have to find the perfect answer, especially if you're someone like me that needs to lose 100, 200, 300 pounds. I know it looks like you have a long road ahead, so you're really worried about any missteps you might make on that journey. Don't be paralyzed because you need to be perfect, which leads us into step 2. You found the program you're going to follow. You make a choice. Just find the one that resonates the most for you, the path that sounds like it's the most sustainable for you to start. Understand your why, keep it in focus, and then get started. Robert Sykes, Keto Savage, is probably one of the first people that I heard use a phrase, paralysis by analysis. And I think this is really what comes into play here. We get so caught up in wanting to make sure that we have dotted every I and crossed every T that we don't take any action. But what I want you to think about is time is going to pass anyway. The 3 years that I've been on my ketogenic journey would have passed to today, whether I had made change or not. If you don't get started, you'll never know what's possible for you over the next 6 months, the next year, or the next 2 years. So don't get so stuck in trying to figure things out that you don't start. Get started. And if after 30 days you don't feel like you're headed in the right direction, make some changes, course correct. Be willing to be flexible and give yourself some grace. Now we come to number 3, and this is the center of this list because it really is something that's at the center of my journey, and that's be consistent. Consistency does not just apply to food. I think that's important. I think we all know that. I think we all know that to make changes to our bodies, whether that's weight loss, weight gain, strength building, we need to be consistent with what we're putting into our bodies. But to me, consistency is about building those patterns and routines in your life that are going to support your ability to do that. As someone that struggles with food addiction and sneak eating and emotional eating, I know that it's the consistency in other areas of my life that enables me to really fight those battles better by getting into a consistent gym routine, or even during this time, getting out for walks every day. Physical repetition, getting up in the morning, journaling, drinking water, having a set morning routine that gets my day started really then empowers me to continue on with what I need to do consistently that day. And really, if you find yourself stalling or not moving where you want to go, be honest with yourself. Are you really being consistent? Are you doing what you need to do to say you're following the path that you've laid out for yourself? Number 4, adapt, adapt, adapt. I'm a quitter. I'm a big quitter. I'm someone who, when I run into roadblocks and obstacles in my path, in the past, I've just decided that what I was doing wasn't working. We love to blame the diets for our weight loss not happening, when really it was me and the choices I was making. So this time, as I illustrated, when I ran into a roadblock, a big one, I decided I needed to adapt and overcome that roadblock. I needed to find a new tool. So don't be afraid to continue to explore the best path for you. If you run into challenges that you feel like you can't get around, reach out for help. Look for resources that are going to allow you to move yourself forward. Like I like to say, it's not about, when we fall, it's not about falling backwards. We're going to fall forward. We're going to learn lessons from those challenges, and we're going to apply them to these journeys that we're on. And I know that can be hard when you see a long road ahead and you're not really sure if there is even a finish line coming for you. But don't be afraid to adapt and grow, and be really mindful of that as you move through your journey. And number 5, don't give up. Realize that you are an important person, whether it's just to yourself, it's to others, it can be to these people that you connect with through the screen. Don't give up on yourself, because if you give up on yourself, all the help in the world isn't going to help move you forward. All the resources are not going to make a lick of difference. You need to believe that you are worth this. You need to believe that you are worth the work and the effort that your journey might require, especially if you are sitting there today and you're thinking, I have more weight to lose than I ever thought I would have gained in my life. I have more to tackle. I have more health problems and challenges to work on than I ever thought I could face. You're worth continuing to stay in that fight. And that's a lesson I had to learn. That really is, going back to the beginning when I was 540 pounds, I didn't see the value in my life. I didn't see the value in who I am as a person. And it's through sharing my story as I've moved through this journey that I've learned that not only, can I be there for myself, but I can be there for other people. I can be there as a support to people. And that's, kind of the next evolution for what's going on for me. I didn't talk about it, yet, but I've actually started working as a one-on-one coach so that I can try to take these lessons that I've learned and share them with other people. And I don't say that as a pitch. I say that as it's possible to change, because I don't think on day one I ever would have thought I'd see myself there. And if I had given up, I wouldn't be here today. If I had given up, I would just, I don't even know if I'll be alive, honestly. And I know that sounds dramatic. I know it sounds really dramatic. And is it hyperbole? I don't think that it is, the way my health was headed. But I want you to realize that when you finally find that value in yourself and choose not to give up, things get a little easier. Now, do the demons go away? Do the challenges go away? I face them every day. I still have those thoughts and those feelings and those voices, but I know by being consistent with my eating and, continuing to live my routines, that you get better at fighting, you get stronger. You find that you can identify the games a lot easier and you can play them better. And it doesn't just become about anymore, is this just a life of craving? It becomes a life of, are there times where my body's actually hungry? And you start to learn the difference. And so I just really want to empower you to put that first foot in front of the one that what does that even mean? Get your feet moving, get on your path and get started, and realize that you too can take yourself to places you never imagined that you would go. And we're all here for you. That's something else. Realize, like, this ketogenic community is a strong, powerful place. And, as much as we may not always agree with each other, and we might not always follow the same dietary requirements and plans, we all still do have that same goal of wanting to see everyone succeed and wanting to share in that amazing success. So I hope that is something that you'll be doing for yourself, and you'll continue to see me doing for myself. I just think that's really important. So thank you for listening to me talk today. I took you through a lot of what I have been through. And if you want to talk some more, here's some ways you can get in touch with me on Instagram and Twitter. And if you want to talk about coaching, you can always go to the keto-road.com. I just really want you to take some time, reflect on where your journey has been and where it's going to head, and know that in the end, you can move that mountain. So thank you so much today. Take care of yourselves.